Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of the inaugural round of Season 4 of the MSC ACC GT3 Series live exclusively here on TRTN. As always, I'm Regan Clark. I'm in with the folks here at MSC for what is now effectively our third season covering MSC's ACC division as you join us for the first round of what is now a 6-part championship here, extended up from the 4 rounds of Season 3 just gone prior. And we join ourselves here at the former home, or at least part-time home, I should say, of the British Grand Prix in a wet and wild set of conditions to follow here in the opening round of the championship at the Brands Hatch circuit. Located in West Kingsdown, Kent, England, and founded in 1950. It's 9 turns and 2.4 miles of FIA Grade 2. Of course, former home of the British Grand Prix. The last ever time Formula 1 would visit this track would be in 1986 for the British Grand Prix. It was also one of 3 British circuits to host a Formula 1 race since the introduction of the classification in 1950. That being, of course, Silverstone, who hosts it every year now and has done so since 1987. Brands Hatch, as well as Aintree. It's actually, sorry, the 4th, I should say. As after Aintree, there was also a very limited one-off appearance in 1993 for the Donington Park circuit up in Leicestershire. Today, though, we're here at Brands, and it is a proper old-school slice of British motorsport history, up there in the conversation as possibly one of, if not the greatest circuit in the nation of Great Britain. We're on board at the moment with Jay Johnson, who's made a very dramatic move away from Ferrari. Of course, we saw him in the trailing end of Season 3. Now joins us away from the number 8 Ferrari 296 to the 108 Bentley Continental GT. Taking a look into the session at large then, as we have about 8 minutes left to go in free practice. This free practice session has been going on for upwards of 60 minutes now, an hour for these drivers to get acclimatized with what is set to be thunderous conditions here in Brands for the opening of the championship. Qualifying just around the corner then. That's going to be on for 12 minutes, and then that 5-minute break comes up where we'll see the grid form up, and we'll be talking about the recent events transpiring at the 74th running of the Safari Rally Kenya in the World Rally Championship. Then on for 30 minutes of racing to follow, no mandatory pit stops. Bear in mind, one of 2 new formats to be introduced for Season 4. Of course, the 30-minute returns from last season, but we're also seeing the introduction of the endurance format, which is a 60-minute format that'll be appearing throughout the season. Taking a look at the calendar, of course, one of 6 rounds, up 2 rounds extra from last season's 4 rounds. We start here at Brands Hatch. We'll be heading to Zolder the week thereafter, then to Silverstone, of course, the track we just mentioned in the conversation of Brands Hatch's history. Crossed paths multiple times with this venue, both of them cropping up in the same year of 1950. Hungaroring the 4th round of the championship, the penultimate round at Zandvoort, and then heading to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya on the 17th of April for the season finale. Well, looking into the timing charts here, coming towards the trailing end of free practice, another big move has been that of Donnie Linton. We saw him last time with BMW, now made the move over to Ford, and with the fastest time at the moment at 1:32.187, things are looking rather spicy indeed for Linton's chances at an early doors championship charge. But he's not alone in company for that. 3 drivers separated by less than 0.2 of a second. Owen Camu, who won the 4th round and technically the final round of last season at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, joins us in the number 1 McLaren. We also have a brand new driver, Nick Alexander, in the number 13 Ferrari. Ford, McLaren and Ferrari then, the big 3 of the ACC meta, look to clash heads for the first round of the championship just around the corner for the first qualifying of the season. Also, we see here Jenson Bolton, 4th fastest, only separate by 283 thousandths of a second. So really, when we want to get into the conversation of who to expect up on those leading positions in this race coming up, you'd have to scroll all the way down to 6th place, actually 7th, I should say, to encompass all drivers currently within a second of that fastest time with such changeable conditions at play here. We just see as well for looking at it here, this is with Lewis Mackenzie, the number 44 Ferrari. Of course, we saw him last season. Joins us once again with Ferrari, currently 7th in this session. And as it stands there, only 72 thousandths away from another new driver on the field with Aston Martin. This is Howard Dunn in the number 23. Now, keep a close eye on this one, because we know a thing or two about Aston Martin's prowess in the wet weather, and we've seen it in the last couple of months to be the case that these are somewhat of the dark horses of the grid. Now, qualifying may not be to Dunn's favour coming up just around the corner here. You can see he's about 4 tenths down from the nearest car, being Jay Johnson, up in 5th place, also with the British manufacturer Bentley. But we've seen the Astons to be deceptively fast for starting conditions. So on that run down through Paddock Hill in towards Druids, things could liven up very, very quickly for the number 23 on his first race into the season. As it stands then, we'll go and catch on board with Donnie Linton. We just scroll away there from Jay Johnson to go and catch on board with Linton. Kicking us off right in the trailing end then of free practice for our unofficial tour of the Brands Hatch circuit. Starting things right off into the downhill right-hander here. The most iconic section of British racing history here. The Paddock Hill Bend. Turn 1 gives us the run into turn 2 here at Druids. And this will be our first major attacking spot is on the run down through Paddock Hill Bend. Those who get the best send through that area will find very easy access to the inside in that open hairpin. Then joining us thereafter, Graham Hill Bend on the run down the Cooper straight towards Surtees as we join the Grand Prix section. You can see there hooking off to the right is the much shorter Indy layout, which is used in the British Touring Car Championships. Heading in towards Pilgrim's Drop then and Hawthorne Hill. Through Pilgrim's Drop now to Hawthorns. Onto the Derek Minter straight here in the Grand Prix section on board with Donnie Linton. We'll get a look into the balance of performance and qualifying statistics in just a moment's time, with about 4 minutes left to go then in free practice. Out through Westfield, through the Dingledale, in towards Sheen Curve. This blind uphill right-hander is alarmingly deceptive and has been a real challenge for drivers even in dry conditions, as we've seen in some other series that we cover here on TRTN. So in the wet conditions, this could prove to be an absolute death trap section of the track. Now on the exit of Stirling's on the run towards Clearways. This is going to be a rather exciting race at hand for us here to kick off the season. Wet, wild conditions, possibly the wettest we've ever seen Brands Hatch in our time covering with this circuit. Down towards the line then on the exit of the Clark Curve towards the start-finish line there. Last lap, 132.972. Currently his fastest, though, on 132.187. That's the session fastest here in free practice. Well, then, getting a look with some of the other drivers heading in towards the line we saw just a moment ago was the number 13, Nick Alexander, has now been pushed down to 4th place because Jenson Bolton with Mercedes AMG has now cropped up to 3rd place. Those two separate as it stands there by 32 thousandths of a second. So things are razor thin in the proceedings toward the first quali of the season. Getting a look in with the nearest driver to the line, that's going to be Liam Morrissey in the 777. Getting a look then with balance of performance statistics, of course, still provided by LFM. We see here best in class will be the Lexus RCF, 30 kilos off, with Ford currently, as it stands then, with 21 kilos off, but bear in mind, still a 19% restrictor. So for Donnie Linton, yes, he does have some considerable weight shed away from his number 10, but he, like many Fords to join this grid, including drivers like Rudolf Slanieks, who's currently 20th and out on track as it stands, will be seeing only 81% of their overall possible power projected onto the tarmac today, and that's going to be even less so when they consider that they'll be playing things rather delicately in the wet conditions here in Brands. Bentley with 14 kilos off, and Mercedes with only 5 kilos shed away, and then even further less than them, 3 kilos off for Ferrari and 2 for Porsche. 6 kilos on for Aston Martin, and BMW with 11 kilos on. McLaren really on the short end of the stick, and a very rare sight indeed when you consider how favourable things have been on the broader scale for McLaren across most balance and performance packages. LFM says no thank you, and it's 29 kilos onto the 720S. This could be some real trouble then for drivers like Owen Camus towards the front of the field. He's going up against a driver whose car has a direct advantage in terms of weight reduction, but is now dealing with an engine penalty, whereas he, with no engine penalty, gets to use all of his horsepower, but at the cost of a 29 kilo increase over curb weight. Those two, nonetheless, are separate by just over 1/10 of a second, so I do spy a very close qualifying at hand. The quality predictions will show us a broadly different scope of the grid, and as we can see here, keep a close eye on the top 5 at the moment. Linton, Camus, Bolton, Alexander and Johnson. Also honourable mentions then to the remainder of that top 10 as we get towards the end of free practice, so also keep an eye out for Dunn, McKenzie, Picorni, Kovalik and Hudson. Looking to catch on board here. Now, it showed that Lanieks was out on track, but he's still in the pit lane, so we've got to catch on board here with Stewart and the number 15, another new driver on to the grid for Season 4 here. And then number 15 making his way out through Stirling's. This is Craig Stewart on his way towards the Clark Curve, and I believe here looks to be coming into the pits. He's holding that inside to, yes, coming into the pits goes Craig Stewart in the number 15. 25 seconds left to go then in free practice. We see in the background then is Donnie Linton heading out through Clark Curve, and that Mustang holding all the way to the left-hand side. So he's trying to really slingshot the car towards the line here to give himself the best possible run in limited grip conditions down through Paddock Hill Bend. Still fastest in the session, 132, 187, the fastest of any driver so far in free practice in conditions like these. The question there remains, will conditions remain as they are in towards qualifying? And can Linton replicate some of the magic he's had over the course of the last hour for these drivers? We've only been in for about 10 minutes here on broadcast, but for these drivers, they've been in this for an hour already with far less time to play with, only 12 minutes worth of qualifying, effectively 10 minutes of lapping. Will these drivers be able to replicate some of those times? Nonetheless, then, Donnie Linton, currently the fastest in the session. We'll come to see if that holds up. As just further up the road on his run down through to Sheen Curve here, we see with Owen Camus heading in towards Sterling's. Got to hand it to them here in the first free practice of the session. Things are very optimistic for Season 4's grid. We have 8 cars there within a second of the fastest time. We see Owen Camus across the line, ends the session in 2nd place. Still things looking rather optimistic for him, though. Of course, when we saw him in Monza, he did go on to take that race win in the season finale for Season 3 amidst John O'Driscoll's championship win. We'll see, though. Could this be the start of a charge, then, for the likes of Owen Camus? Well, we'll come to find out as we see first among the fray, then very exuberant start from the Mustangs. Donnie Linton and Rudolf Slaniak's first out on the track, the number 10 and the 112. Immediate charge then towards Paddock Hill Bend. And taking a look then into the qualifying predictions. Now, this is the first time, I believe, on MSC we've had a full top 10 worth reporting on qualifying predictions since September, back in Season 2. So taking a look here, Owen Camus predicted at pole position with Jay Johnson in 2nd, Milan Picconi in 3rd, Sean McNally in 4th place. Worth noting as well, McNally has now departed what has been a long time tenure with Nissan, now moved over to Mercedes-AMG. He's set to possibly line up here 4th place. Howard Dunn in 5th place, Wesley Ambrose in 6th, Bartek Kowalik in 7th, with Daniel O'Brien in 8th, Jasper Prins in 9th, and Jensen Bolton in 10th place. You can see just how close the spread of times are across that top 10. So from anything we've seen out of free practice, that is likely to be the case heading in to the first quali of the season. We're on board with Donnie Linton and Rudolf Slaniak's our leading duo then for Ford. This is going to be a very, very curious first round of the championship for many, of course. With now 6 rounds into it, we don't have points distribution split into a quarter of the championship with each round here. We are dealing with slightly lower percentiles of that, so these drivers can afford to play things a little bit riskier, knowing that they can fight for points a little later on down the line. What it also means, though, is it's going to be a lot harder for these drivers to hold on to a lead in this championship. With more rounds presents itself more risks of potentially losing out on points. All things to consider then for Donnie Linton. We're on board with the number 10 for the first flying lap. You can see and hear as well with the sound of that 5.4 litre, the hesitation by Linton down through Paddock Hill, waiting for the car to grip up whilst it's coasting before he tries and dares apply any bit of the throttle whatsoever. And this is going to be somewhat of a universal trait for a lot of drivers on this grid, is playing things very, very safe through Sector 1, which is going to be a bit of a flip on the head of what we've seen in dry races here at Brands Hatch, where drivers can really afford to go gung-ho down through turns 1 and 2. And it's where we've often seen quite a few incidents and quite a few battles come to a head. We hear there from Wesley Ambrose that his power went out in practice. It seems that his biggest nemesis then for the start of the season won't be any one specific driver, team or manufacturer. It may very well be his electricity provider. The 112, we just heard the sound of gravel collecting there, and seeing on the maps the 112 did run out wide after the run of Westfields just before the run through the Dingle Dell. We're still on board with Donnie Linton, making his way down towards Clark Curve, just on the exit of Clearways. In through the Clark Curve then. He'll be our benchmark time. So far, so good for Donnie Linton. Let's see what can he put on the table here for the first flying lap. Towards the line then goes the number 10 1:34.080. Nearest to the line on a valid flying lap will be Owen Camu. We'll see what is going to be the early response here by McLaren. It's fastest by 1.168 seconds. Then nearest to the line, the number 4, Sean McNally, third fastest. Then the 777, Liam Morrissey to the line, and fourth. Number 13 nearest to the line here, Nick Alexander, one of the new drivers on the field, was up in that top 5 for quite some time in free practice. Across the line, he's fastest by over half a second. Then from behind him, the 33, Jenson Bolton, by less than a tenth, goes to second. From behind them was the number 29, Milan Picorni, to third place. Number 88 coming to the line. And for one of the new drivers on the field, sorry, that's the number 68, number 88, I should say there, Daniel O'Brien. We'll actually wait to see here, as I don't think he's too far from setting in another time. Just heading in through Aintree, this is Steve O'Markey. And the number 68, I really need to get my eyesight checked. Howard Dunn across the line then, 7th fastest with Aston Martin. We also saw there for Lewis Mackenzie, 6th fastest with the number 44 Ferrari. So then as it stands, Alexander, Bolton, Johnson, Picorni and Camu in the top 5. Bit of a down and out start then for Donnie Linton. That definitely came as quite the surprise. Up ahead of him, the 333. Jasper Prince to the line, goes 11th. So we see here for Donnie Linton, down across the line. Can he find his way back up to the top 5? Yes, he can. 4th place up and ahead of Milan Picorni by 37 thousandths. Then joining him there is comrade in arms at Ford, the 112 of Rudolf Slanieks, to 6th. Meanwhile, we see here Owen Camu now 2nd fastest by 2 thousandths of a second. Nick Alexander has his work cut out for him, leading on that fastest time, 1:32.365. Can he find an improvement across the line here for the first quali of the season? Yes, he can, up to 120 thousandths in his last lap there. But that's brought immediately down because Jenson Bolton with Mercedes fastest by 15 thousandths. It has passed hands between quite a few in the opening 5 minutes. I would not believe the like. The 88 across the line a moment ago, Daniel O'Brien into the top 10. The 108, so here comes Jay Johnson. And up to fastest with Bentley. So as it stands there, we've had Mercedes, McLaren, Ford, Ferrari, and now Bentley as fastest manufacturers. And we have only just, as you see there, crossed into the 6-minute mark. So in the opening half of quali today, the first qualifying of season 4, this is geared up to be a very, very exciting start to the season. 333 coming to the line, Jasper Prince. Of course, we saw him in the trailing end of season 3. We'll see what he can do here. From 15th across the line he goes and stays there. Number 112 coming to the line. So here comes Rudolf Slanieks with Ford from 8th, stays 8th. From behind him, we see Owen Camu up to 2nd. And also it's worth pointing out that Donnie Linton just a moment ago went fastest, 1:32.005. There seems to be this constant ebb and flow between the number 10 and the number 1. Camu and Linton have been following each other around here on this track. From across the line a moment ago went the number 68, Steve O'Markey, to 16th place for Mercedes in the 2Cs Motorsport AMG. 2Cs Motorsport, and whilst we're on the subject of British tracks, of course, 2Cs Motorsport's based over in Silverstone at the retail park. Fun fact for you at home. Number 35, Bartek Kowalik, from 13th, stays there across the line. Number 23 nearest to the line. We catch on board here Howard Dunn. Now, for Dunn, he needs to find himself similar to where he was in that practice session. He needs to find his way up towards that top 6, I would say. Being on that 3rd row or in front is going to be those power play positions for Aston Martin. They want to get as little room in front of them as possible, but we know as it stands right now for Aston, going up against Mercedes, going up against Ferrari, and more namely going up against Ford and McLaren, it is a bit of a tall order for the V8 Vantage to go head to head. But we do know under racing conditions, and this will be one we'll keep a very close eye on, if he's able to crack the code here, Howard Dunn could have a very, very vibrant start in that Vantage. Crossed the line a moment ago, the 112, Rudolf Slanieks, 9th place at the moment. Number 4 nearest to the line, Sean McNally. Now, we mentioned it before, he's moved away from Nissan. It's quite an exciting thing to see then, this new chapter for McNally. a driver who has won in quite a few division championships over on VSR. We'll be going live with coverage of Season 11's opening round next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. We see here for McNally, this is potentially the start of a new big chapter then for the number 4. At the moment then, 8th fastest. Nearest to the line then the number 28 a moment ago. We'll go to check in there with Willie Hoke. Now 17th in the session. Then the 23 and the 44. So across the line a moment ago. When the 23 and the 44. It's also worth pointing out the 33 there, Jenson Bolton, back up to the fastest time by 260 thousandths there. So where we've been seeing gaps in hundredths, some even in thousandths, we're seeing it now in tenths. This is just over a quarter of a second he's forged out over the number 10 of Linton. As we see here with Laniax, the duo heading down through Clark Curve. 2.5 minutes left to go then in the first quali of the season. What can Ford find up their sleeve here? Bear in mind, they've only got 81% of their total power output. They have a 19% restrictor. Laniax fastest by 2 tenths. So Linton maintains a position on the podium, but it's Laniax fastest now, 1:31.545. Crossed the line a moment ago when McNally still in that top 10. So this is still a powerful position to play for in the first quali of the season. Number 13 across the line a moment ago. Nick Alexander went from, I believe that was 8th to the fastest lap. 1:31.235 for Ferrari. Up 310 thousandths over Ford. And up just shy over half a second over Mercedes. Number 13, now fastest in the session. Number 15 across the line a moment ago. Following in their trail, the number 28 and the number 33. We see here with Bolton across the line. Needs half a second now to reclaim that fastest lap. And with 1.5 minutes left to go, he may just have one more chance if he can properly hammer it down towards the line. You also saw the number 68 across the line a moment ago. Steve O'Markey in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes. We see they're pulled to one side. I believe that is, if I'm not mistaken there, that is, yes, that's McKenzie. So you see here for Lewis McKenzie, the number 44 Ferrari, 5th fastest in the session so far, tucked in behind Donny Linton, but up and ahead of Owen Camu. And this opening set of conditions has given us a very exciting qualifying session at hand to kick the season off. Number 4 nearest to the line, so we'll go and catch on board here with McNally. Can he make his way back in to the top 10 from 11th place on the field? Not this time around, but has one more lap to play with. The 333 crossed the line from behind him as well, and that's with Jasper Prinz, 13th in the session. Number 13 nearest to the line once again. So here comes Nick Alexander. 1:31.235 to beat as he crosses the line. Couldn't find an improvement over his personal best, but by the looks of it there, with Rudolf Laniax back in the pit lane in the closing seconds of quali, he may only have competition from Bolton. But never say never on another driver doing what he did there. He went from 8th to 1st in one lap. The world difference made up there. The number 15 across the line a moment ago. For Craig Stewart, 20th as it stands right now. You see the number 28, I believe, was running on white flags for just a moment there. Across the line went the number 28. That was Willie Hoke in the trailing end of qualifying. He'll start 16th then, up on the 8th row, just on the trailing end actually of the 8th row of today's grid. Nearest to the line, the number 1, Owen Camu, but as our telemetry indicated, it was possibly an invalid lap, so he only needed 15 thousandths to make his way to the top 5 as he crosses the line. It was actually a valid lap all along, so the game was lying to us. One thing is for certain though, Owen Camu to the 2nd row then, 4 fastest at the end of qualifying. Number 11 nearest to the line. We see here with Josh Hudson. Across the line he goes. And he's 10th at the end of his first qualifying session. Back on board then with the leading Ferrari, Nick Alexander, on his first race here in the MSC ACC GT3 series here in Season 4 Round 1. Tops the timing charts by just over 0.3 of a second, and a landmark change of command here of this grid, and across the line holds on to that fastest time. No improvement over, but none necessary at this time for him. Across the line from behind we see the number 999 at the end of qualifying, and that was Jonathan Barrett to 19th place. Well, what an ecstatic opening qualifying session we have just seen there, folks. Nick Alexander on pole position with Laniak second, Bolton third, Camus fourth, and Linton in the top 5. All in all, we have 8 cars within a second of that fastest lap set. 1:31.235, the fastest time by Ferrari. Well, taking a look into the session itinerary, not long from now we'll be getting into the 5-minute break where we'll be discussing the current running of things just after the second leg of the 74th running of the Safari Rally Kenya. Then after that, at around 17 minutes past 8 Greenwich Mean Time, and that's a bit of a rough estimation, we'll be seeing 30 minutes of racing get underway for the first round of Season 4. So a lot to take away from that. 4 different manufacturers, by the looks of it there, inside of that top 5. Ford, Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari. Inside of that top 10, though, there's an additional 2, courtesy of Bentley and Aston Martin. So then, taking a look at the current running of things in the 74th running of the Safari Rally Kenya. After 10 stages in, one of which was forced to be cancelled due to extreme wet conditions at the start of the second leg today. Currently, as it stands, Oliver Solberg and Elliot Edmondson lead the rally in Rally 1 by a single second over Sébastien Ogier and Vincent Landé. It's a Toyota 1, 2, 3 and 4 with Elfyn Evans in 3rd and Sami Pyri in 4th place. Trouble for Hyundai as, of course, Adrian Formo started the rally 2 minutes down but has now made his way back up to 6th place in the overall standings. He tucks in behind his teammate Thierry Neuville, currently 5th. Looking further down the order, 7th place for Takamoto Katsuta. Esa-Pekka Lappi on his part-time drive for Hyundai finds himself 8th and currently towards the back of the runnings for the Rally 1s. Obviously, there's been some further troubles for both of the Fords of Josh McAlean and John Armstrong. More on that in just a moment, though. On the Rally 2 standings, it's Robert Verbs leading the rally for Skoda, with Gus Greensmith on a new drive for Toyota with their GR Yaris Rally 2, currently 2nd. And then 3rd place there, as it stands, for Fabrizio Zaldivar with the Skoda Fabia RS. Skoda once again dominating here in the Safari. As far as Rally 2s go, you can't do much better than the Fabia RS when it comes to the rugged, proper nitty-gritty rallies such as the Safari Rally Kenya. We also saw them do sizably well in Rally Saudi Arabia last year. We'll be seeing what they do later on in the year. Now, some of the major issues to have cropped up for the leading category has been for both of the Fords severe damages as well as stage retirements for Josh McAlean. As for John Armstrong, at the end of the 10th stage, he found himself without his rear axle in power. The car was front-wheel drive heading into the service at the end of the second leg. There'll be further issues then for Ford heading into the second part of the rally starting from tomorrow, with 10 more stages to cover before the end of Safari Rally Kenya. It is a real gauntlet then for drivers all throughout the world of rallying. We see also some local talent competing on the more national level. And that's some of the greatest parts we get to see from these rallies, is these drivers we've never seen before on cars we've not seen in circulation for years. We're seeing Mitsubishis, we're seeing Subarus, we're seeing vintage Skodas, we're seeing it all compete under the veil of rallying here in one of the largest motorsports events in continental Africa. Well, we'll be able to see how things fan out, and by the end, by the looks of it, of this weekend, we may be able to report on who comes home with the rally win across Rally 1 and Rally 2. Things looking very close at hand then between Seb Ogier and Oliver Solberg. It's worth pointing out for Solberg, this is still part of his grander championship charge, but he's going to have to go head-to-head with Seb Ogier, looking to break the all-time record away from a driver that he has raced alongside, often on the same team as, for many, many years, the legendary Sebastian Loeb. Well, away from the topic then of Safari Rally Kenya, let's get on to the topic of the grid today for Season 4 Round 1 of the MSC ACC GT3 Series. And starting things off, it's Nick Alexander on pole position. A very, very solid drive there, up 3/10 at the end of the first quali of the season, with Rudolf Laniak starting alongside him in 2nd place. Jenson Bolton in 3rd, ahead of Owen Camus in 4th, and behind them, Donnie Linton 5th. And we see there, well, we can't see, but just know that the number 44 of Lewis Mackenzie is their 6th place. Behind them, Jay Johnson 7th, with Howard Dunn with Aston Martin in 8th place. Milan Picorni in 9th, and Josh Hudson rounds out the top 10. Sean McNally in 11th, with Daniel O'Brien in 12th. Jasper Prins in 13th, with Bartek Kowalik in 14th. Ghost Golf, otherwise operating as Timo Fire in the number 67, starts 15th alongside Willie Hoke in 16th, Ben Dexter 17th, and Steve O'Markey in 18th place. Jonathan Barrett 19th, and rounding out the top 20 there on the back of the 10th row is Liam Morrissey in the 777, currently 20th on the grid. Craig Stewart in 21st and Sebastian Scaparo in 22nd. Alessandro Litti starts at the back then for Lamborghini in 23rd. 23 cars then for the first round of the championship here in wet and blustery conditions here in Brands Hatch. It is going to make for a very chaotic race start on the run down through Paddock Hill Bend for the first time here. Drivers struggling for grip. Do expect there to be some chaos here. There are three major assurances in life then: death, taxes, and turn one madness. Today looks to be no exemption. Getting on board then with Nick Alexander leading this session away. Looking behind him then, a swarm of some 22 cars lined up behind him, with him being the 23rd. Starting from the pit lane, Alessandro Litti, and by the looks of it there, Liam Morrissey. So we can see these wet conditions do not show any signs of going away. And taking one last look at the itinerary, just to give any of you joining us now an update as to what to expect coming up just around the corner then. It's going to be 30 minutes of racing with no mandatory pit stop here in Brands Hatch for the first round of the championship. Now, of course, there'll also be the 60-minute endurance format cropping up throughout the season. But today, we're on for the standard format. 30 minutes of action then to follow here in Brands, under rather stereotypical British weather. You see on board with Alexander heading in towards Surtees. Now this area, like Paddock Hill Bend, is going to be some area of contention because you can see by its design it's slightly off camber and then uphill over a crest. So the cars will really struggle to find grip in this area. Do expect a lot of understeer or a lot of hesitation, if not that, on the run up through Surtees for the first time. There will be likely that fair share of overconfident souls making their run in towards the scope of Hawthorns for the first time with very little grip to play with. Do expect there to be some trouble as well. And as the drivers become acclimatized, we could see this to be one of the more action-packed areas of the track. We've seen battles go side by side through here on a rare occasion, and it does make for some spectacular viewing. The drivers having a great time as well. Now we're starting from the pit lane there. Josh Hudson in the number 11 Ferrari. That makes 3 cars from the pit lane. So as it stands, 20 on track and 3 from the pit lane. Making our way then through the Sheen curve. Expect that to be trouble as well with water collecting there on that inside curve. It can be deceptively slippy on the run in through turn 7. Now through turn 8 we see here at Stirling's. You see the formation process begin. Or I suppose what we can't see is the rest of the grid there because the amount of spray being kicked up, that's going to be a major consideration for drivers on their run down through turn 1 for the first time here. Is going to be whether or not they can actually see their opponents in front. Could we be seeing somewhat of a parade down through turn 1, or could we be seeing unparalleled levels of violence in that opening lap? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. We see rolling down towards the line then Nick Alexander from Rudolph's Laniacs. Behind them, Bolton and Camus for a very competitive front and second row. That's not to take away from the rest of the grid then. 3 cars in the pit lane, 20 on track, 10 either side of it on the run down towards the line here for the first round of season 4. And we're green and racing here in Brands Hatch. The 86 already dealt a drive-through penalty. We see into the wall goes Jensen Bolton already before we've even hit turn 1. It is disaster here in Brands. Still not privy to precisely what happened on that race start. Down across the line we go, and we see there it was the Mercedes to have gone into the wall, so bumped into the wall, so it appeared. Then bumped into Donnie Linton, who in turn bumped in towards that of, I believe, was Mackenzie, yes, in the 44. And that created this huge domino effect on the grid today. Still not precisely sure how on earth something like that has been able to happen. Nonetheless, Alexander leads ahead of Laniak's Camus now up to 3rd. And we see there, keep an eye for the Aston Martin because Howard Dunn is now in 4th place. We see here for Jay Johnson alongside Daniel O'Brien. Yellow flags continue to fly the number 15. now back into the pit lane. That could be the end of their race very early doors after what has been one of the most shocking starts here at Brands, where we expected the bulk of the action to happen down at Paddock Hill. We were quite surprised to find it was anything but. We see up in front there in the foreground, Donnie Linton, despite appearing their 5th place with severe damages, could be sized up to lose position out to the approaching 44 of Mackenzie as well as the 88 of O'Brien. And on our screens at the moment, we're on board with the 108 of Jay Johnson. What a bizarre start then we have been gifted here in Brands Hatch. Now, we've seen some calamity here on a few different rounds we've covered on TRTN in the last couple of weeks. More poignantly, we saw for Season 5, Round 4, and Bathurst was a huge calamity, surmounting to 13 wreckages on the opening lap. But this was quite the shocker, because even in Bathurst, they were able to get up and around Turn 1. The drivers have not been so lucky to find themselves blessed with that idea so early on. We see here Robbo and Camu, part of that three-way split for the lead. Out through Druids, up in front, Rudolph Slanieks and Nick Alexander. Getting a look on board here with some of the drivers in the spread of the top 10. We can see up in front, going up and around the outside on Donnie Linton, was Lewis Mackenzie in the 44. We'll go and catch on board with that Ferrari. We see here with Mackenzie, the number 86 having gone through the pits and served their drive-through penalty. We see for Donnie Linton, in spite of his major damages incurred on that opening lap prang, is still holding strong inside of that top 10. But, of course, how far does he expect to go with front-end damages? Yellow flags back out again for the 28. This is down through Graham Hill Bend. If we go to catch on board here with some of the drivers down in that area, we see behind it was for Willie Hoke, who had some trouble. We see here from Liam Morrissey's point of view, 16th place at the moment as he's up and ahead of Hoke on the run through Surtees. Back in the green flag conditions on track as we go to catch back on board with some of the drivers fighting in and around that top 10. We see for Milan Picorni, he's got front row tickets to the fight between Jasper Prins and Donnie Linton out through the Westfields in towards Sheen Curve. Well, the amount of spray he's kicking up, both he and us here in the commentary box can barely see a thing. So much so that we could almost barely make out there lunging to the inside was Donnie Linton on a swift counter-attack in the number 10. We see him down towards Clark Curve. Behind him, Bartek Kowalik in the number 35. Out through Clark we go at turn 9. Oh, across the foreground there, that was Daniel O'Brien. He spun on the entry into the pit lane. A very, very surprising turn of events there. Possibly may have hooked out all the way to the left, caught the rear left and spun the car in towards the paddock. Very bizarre stuff. For Donnie Linton, he won't be complaining. That's a free position up from 9th to 8th after 4 minutes of racing. I mean, taking a look here with the standing order, Nick Alexander leads ahead of Rudolph Slanieks in 2nd, Owen Camu in 3rd. We see there for Howard Dunn, he's in 4th place with Aston Martin, confidently so, away from the 44 Lewis Mackenzie. 3.9 seconds between the pair in 4th and 5th. Behind them, Jay Johnson with Bentley. Milan Picorni having got up ahead of the Bentley, so that's a recent change of hand. Now Picorni to 6th, Johnson to 7th, Linton 8th, Kowalik 9th, and McNally in the top 10. Jasper Prins in 11th. We see challenging down towards Hawthorns, but not going to be trying his luck too early on, given how things have already gone so far this race. 12th place behind them, we see Steve O'Markey in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes. So that McLaren there, Prins, is tucked in between two Mercs here. He is in somewhat of a Mercedes sandwich on the run up towards the Sheen Curve. After the first 5 minutes of racing, very hectic stuff then. And oh, it only gets worse here for Jasper Prins, who does a bit of a half spin, turns it back around. I mean, fair play to him. That was definitely a bit of a heart in the throat moment for him. We see here on the run through the Sheen Curve, as we pull back up the live footage to the bottom right-hand side. We had that deactivated for our time in LMU, but taking a look here, we did see he was able to right the car. That rear axle staying on the tarmac did him a lot of favours in righting the car. But for Prins, he does drop in now behind Steve O'Markey and down to 12th place. In terms of nearby fights, we've just seen one come to a head there. And looks like the aim of a switchback for the number 10. Of course, a little bit laggy on our end. That's because of the replay system creating a little bit of desync. But as we catch back on there, we see what was the proceedings of a fantastic counter-attack by Donnie Linton over Bartek Kowalik. The number 35 and the number 10 clashing for 8th place. In terms of nearby fights, also to consider, Hoke v Morrissey, 1.4 seconds. We see the physical gap between the pair on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Kowalik v Linton, also worth pointing out, is Camu v Lanieks. Watching here then with Donnie Linton. This is in the scope then of the battle for 8th place. He's been defending fiercely now against Bartek Kowalik. These two going head-to-head for the scope of 8th place. It has not been an ideal start for Donnie Linton, especially riding on the hopes that this could have been the first step onto the ladder that could bring him to a championship 5 rounds from now. As you see for Linton, he's got his work cut out for him. And his rival to be there, Nick Alexander, has had a breezy drive in the opening 7 minutes. Coming up not far then from the opening 10 minutes, Alexander leads over Laney X by 2 seconds. Now, getting a look further up the order away from the fight of 8th, we see here the fight of 2nd. Rudolf Laniax versus Owen Camus. Let's go and catch on board with these two to get a more up-close and personal view of things. On board with the 112, defending away then for 2nd place is Rudolf Laniax. We see Camus challenging for the inside in through Surtees, so this battle could be over as quickly as it started. As we see great line for it, but then a bump on the exit of Surtees. Rudolf Laniax will not be pleased with how that one has panned out for him. Wesley Ambrose saying after watching the start replay, it appears the number 1 caused that pile-up. So for Owen Camus, he could be somewhat of a marked man on this grid for what happened between himself and the Mercedes of Jenson Bolton on the start of today's race. All will be revealed in time, and it could make for a very controversial second running of the championship when we head to round 2. Right now, though, we've seen displaced from 2nd to 3rd. Rudolf Laniax attempting to avenge the losses then of his fellow Fords on the podium. Goes head-to-head with the driver who allegedly instigated that opening incident. Currently in the pits then, Bolton, Litty and Ghost Golf among the casualties of that opening lap incident. We see here, great line by Laniax. This could be sizing him up for a move to the inside at Druids. He does fake one out there on Camus, forces him to defend from the inside. Up ahead of them, we see the number 13, only a 3.5 second margin away. We can see, just making our way through the Graham Hill bend, was Nick Alexander with Ferrari. We'll catch on with this battle for 2nd a little later on. We see here, back on board with the fight for 8th now from the attacking point of view, Bartek Kowalik in the number 35 BMW. Up in front of him there, Donnie Linton in the number 10, still nursing that damage off of his injured front end. Behind them, the 999 and the 333, that's Barrett and Prince, could be going head-to-head here, so let's go and catch on board with these two. This could be an exciting one to watch. We also see here the fight for 15th, Hoke v O'Brien. Let's go and look, though, with Barrett and Prince. Behind them, we see that's Steve O'Markey and Josh Hudson side by side in towards Surtees. The Mercedes up and ahead as we hit Surtees. The Ferrari, though, challenging alongside. So let's go and catch on board with these two here to go and see what's what. On with Josh Hudson. Now, this is the fight for 13th place. As we see, better straight line speed off of the Ferrari over the Mercedes. Or perhaps a degree of hesitation practiced by Steve O'Markey in the 68. Up through Hawthorns we go. Then through the Derek Minter straight into Westfields. Now, bear in mind, catching up at a fast rate of knots to Jonathan Barrett's point of view is Josh Hudson. So this could be an interesting one to watch here. Bear in mind, a lot of those fights that we've been talking of earlier still raging on, namely Kowalik versus Linton. They're on their run down towards turn 9. We're on board here with Josh Hudson now as he scopes up for the battle of 12th place. That spray up in front of him represents the position of the number 999, Jonathan Barrett, who had a little bit of a slip up in that 3rd sector, and that is allowing the opportunity for him to come and fight again. Now, quickly diverting away to see, and now up and ahead of Donnie Linton on a run down through Paddock Hill Bend was Bartek Kowalik. And holds on to it out through Druids. So that's really the anchoring point of any move in Sector 1. Can you hold it by the time you hit Druids? Because if it's not, then it was never meant to be. You see even further issues through the Graham Hill Bend, losing more time as Donnie Linton as he drops now down to 9th place. Nearest to his current position then is going to be Sean McNally, also nursing front end damage in his number 4 Mercedes. So after that first 10 minutes of racing, Alexander leads ahead of Camus in 2nd, Laniax in 3rd with Dunn in 4th place, Mackenzie 5th, Johnson with the fastest lap so far. So the Bentley fastest among the fray. As we see here, the proceedings of a fight for 5th place will stay on board with the fight of Lewis Mackenzie versus Jay Johnson, Ferrari versus Bentley, as we continue to read down the rest of the field. Picconi in 7th, Cavalcade, Linton 9th, and then McNally rounds out the top 10. Prinz in 11th, with Hudson 12th, Barrett 13th, Markey 14th, Hoke in 15th, O'Brien in 16th, Morrissey in 17th, Dexter 18th, Scaparo 19th, and Stewart in 20th. Well, rounding out that order then is Ghost Golf, otherwise Timo Fire in the number 15 car. He's 21st. Bolton and Litty in the pits then 22nd and 23rd. Soft DNFs from this race. We saw things get incredibly close on the opening straight down towards the Paddock Hill bend for the first time here between... not for the first time, for the next time, I should say here, for Mackenzie and Johnson. And in the meantime, we do see, going up the inside, great move by Jay Johnson. The 108 held his ground there, was able to exploit some of the instability from the Ferrari. He was a little shaky on the run through turn 1. The Bentley was able to hunker down and hold on to position. That was a great move then for the 108 up into the top 5. Looking at some of the other fights, one that we were predicting not long ago, McNally v Linton, did show signs of progress, was up to 0.8 of a second, has now since dropped away to a full second. From behind them, we are seeing advances here for some of the previous fights. Hudson and Barrett, about 1.9 seconds. Hudson to Prinz, 1.3 seconds. Also, Laniax to Camus, 1.1 seconds. It's worth pointing out, since that bump and run move for Owen Camus through Surtees, he only has about 1.1 seconds over Laniax in 3rd place. We'll see, though, how that updates as we hit the line. Meanwhile, Alexander now fastest in the session. New fastest lap for the number 13. 0.9 of a second, so having dropped 0.2, the signs of a possible fight for second are just around the corner for Owen Camus and Rudolf Laniax. Heading through Druids, you can see the Ford is getting closer and closer. That physical gap drawing in for the number 1. Up and ahead of that 112 on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. We see that has dropped an additional 0.2 down to 0.7 of a second. So this is one we'll be keeping a very close eye on. We see in the foreground there trouble for Sebastian Scaparo. And then in the fight currently for 16th place, so it appears, or at the very least was the possible fight for O'Brien v Hoke, but I think there was some trouble through Sheen Curve for Daniel O'Brien. He now finds himself a very far cry away from 0.3 of a second. New fights emerging, Linton v McNally and Hudson v Prinz. We see here Josh Hudson going up the inside as Jasper Prinz runs out wide at Surtees. The number 11 moves up into 11th place. Meanwhile, on that leading fight on this grid, 2nd place up for grabs. Owen Camus got that move secured through the run of Surtees a few laps ago. Laniax ever since has been pursuing as we get towards the halfway mark of race 1. I suppose more relevantly, round 1 here. Now, speaking of advancing gaps, take a look here. Milan Picconi versus Lewis Mackenzie. 6th place, 2 Ferraris head-to-head. Definite possibility of an emerging fight. Down through Paddock Hill at turn 1. On the run up towards turn 2. We also see up in front there, albeit displaced of position, is the number 67 Aston riding on the trails of the number 108 Bentley of Jay Johnson. Got to hand it to Johnson here. I mean, this move away from Ferrari was a very confusing one because this is the polar opposite of that 296 that we saw him drive last season, but it seems to be a much more comfortable position for him as the 108 currently holds on to a top 5 in the opening round of the championship. This is a very respectable position to hold on to. It's solid points on the table, and with 6 rounds to play for, this is a great leg up into that possible conversation, say some 5 weeks from now, into a possible championship in his own respect. This is where it all starts. To be in that top 5 represents a possible run to the championship. Much easier to progress from that point than it is for any other position. We do see in the meantime, Donnie Linton is towed to the pit lane. That could very well be the end of his first race. Now, this is a horrible camera angle to see it from, but that Ford is heavily damaged now, and I think that may have just been the straw to break the camel's back. Now, we didn't see the incident that caused this for the number 10, but we saw that it was somewhat of a slow downward spiral brought on by that lap 1 incident where he incurred quite a lot of front end damage in and amongst the skirmish that presided over that first run down towards turn 1. For Donnie Linton, not an ideal start to the season, especially given where he qualified from. This will be one that he hopes to forget in due course. Looking back on board with the remaining drivers of this grid then, we see Picconi v McKenzie still a likely possibility. The two Ferraris continue to close ground over one another. This is in the scope currently for 6th place as we get past the halfway mark of the session. With the most recent changes then for Linton possibly out of this race. Taking a look at the current running order of things, Alexander, Camus, Laniax, Dunn and Johnson make the top 5. McKenzie, Picconi, McNally, Hudson and Prinz in the top 10. Just shy of 14 minutes left to go. 13 and a half minutes to be more precise as we stay on board here with Milan Picconi. Still watching in then with Milan Picconi versus Lewis McKenzie. The number 44 and the number 29 we see currently held at somewhat of an armistice of just around 3/4 of a second. That has come much closer on this run here through Druids. It's this run through Sector 1 and Sector 2 where we start to see some of that crunch happen between the pair. And we see another solid run through Graham Hill Bend. The number 35 has now been dished a stop-go 30-second penalty. Sorry, not a stop-go, a drive-through penalty, my mistake. That is for Bartek Kovalik. The BMW, as it appears there, now drops position behind the lapping car, I believe there, of Steve O'Markey. But Kovalik, things have gone from bad to worse here. We see him dropped a dramatic amount down the order. Bear in mind, he was the one fighting with Donnie Linton for a great deal of time in this race today. Now with the drive-through penalty, things are getting far worse. We see in the time since, McNally now overtaken by Josh Hudson, moving up to 8th place in the number 11. He's been on quite the warpath here, heading into that second half of today's race. Looking quickly back on board with a new fight here, the Battle of Britain here. Bentley versus Aston Martin. So we see Howard Dunn vulnerable as he holds the inside far slower on the run in towards Clark Kerr, but that's still to his benefit. So we see here with the Aston Martin holding on to that inside, with the Bentley now having to tuck into his slipstream on the run down towards Paddock Hill Bend. This is currently in the scope then for the fight of 4th. Lunging up the inside goes Jay Johnson over Howard Dunn. Bentley versus Aston on the run through Paddock Hill, and it looks to go to Bentley. We see just up the order, is that Owen Camus? Do mine eyes deceive me? Yes, that is Owen Camus. So that means, yes, taking a look here as it updates, Rudolf Laniax moves up to 2nd. Owen Camus drops to the back of the podium. And now we see the recent procession here of Bentley and Aston Martin to give challenge for what very well could be a transformation to the fight of 3rd. We see in the background there, hang on, that was a big slide out for the 67 Aston. So we see here, rejoining, yellow flags out. We see that continues with an isolated incident also going on down through turn 8, I believe there. We see for Craig Stewart. So on opposite ends of the track, 2 incidents playing out in real time. Back in the green flag conditions, the number 35 clears its drive through. We see approaching from behind there is Daniel O'Brien. In the number 88 from behind him, the BMW of Ben Dexter. These two very close at hand for a fight of 15th place. We'll watch here, down towards Paddock Hill Bend we go with these two, the 247 and the 88. As it stands, though, no advance of position. As I say that, though, switchback lined up for Ben Dexter. So that kept us definitely thinking. Very wide run out for Daniel O'Brien. Ben Dexter moves up to 15th. Could that be 2 for the price of 1? Yes, it can, because you see there. Actually, no, that... Huh? What? Hang on a moment. Who is this, then? Is that... Yes, it's Craig Stewart. Okay. We had the livery mixed up with the 777. We see even more troubles here for Bartek Kovalik. Yellow flags out for the BMW at Surtees. And that's quickly brought back into green flags as he rejoins the track. Looking in on some of those fights once again in the top 10. Picconi v McKenzie. This is a tale as old as time now. The 44 and the 29 still clashing heads for 6th place. Further up the order, Jay Johnson within a chance of a podium on the starting round of the championship, eyeing up positions there over Owen Camu in the number 1. McLaren having recently dropped away from 2nd place. They make their way towards Pilgrim's Drop here and up towards Hawthorne Hill as that gap continues to draw closer. Oh, hang on a moment. What was going on there for Owen Camu? I think he's just hit the gravel. Yes, he has. So let's get a look at this on the replay. We saw the start of it before the cameras cut away. There was quite a lot of spray involved there. That's where it happened for him. He caught the left-hand side of the car on the grass. When he went to turn in, the car just went straight. That is a very, very bizarre turn of events then for Owen Camu. He drops down, by the looks of it there, to 6th place. Up ahead of him, Lewis McKenzie. This has been a very sudden shift of fate for that number 1, all spurred on by one incident down in turn. Looking at it there, that would have been the run of, just quickly counting it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hawthorne's surprising trouble there. Now, we thought it would have been understeer mid-corner, as we see even more issues here for Owen Camu. This time at Paddock Hill. This could find him losing position out to Milan Picconi behind. As it stands, though, there was even issues as well for the 29 in its pursuit of a possible return to 6th. Lewis McKenzie, he now mans the top 5 in the number 44, so that's 2 Ferraris in the top 5, with Nick Alexander still leading, this time by 3.6 seconds. With 7.5 minutes to the line, Alexander seems geared up for a win on debut. The number 13 looks sized up to win here in Brands. We see, or I suppose here more relevantly, was trouble in the background, then becomes trouble in the foreground as the number 35, Bartek Kowalik, ran out wide in the BMW, possibly to move out of the way of the advancing race leader. As we see here, still a sizable gap as it stands between Laniax and Johnson, so unlikely to see these two clash heads for 2nd. They're 11.6 seconds away. As for the Aston Martin, we see here for Howard Dunn, he's up to 4th place. I mean, this is looking to be a very, very sizable start for the number 23 here in this season. Great concern, though, for Owen Camu. Not only is he a possible marked man, currently the finger pointing at him for the opening lap incident. Now, of course, that's just from sources we've heard. We can't confirm that ourselves, nor will we take their word as gospel. But that's from what we've heard so far, and that early doors investigation of that lap 1 incident was a possible cause there between a collision instigated by the number 1 with the number 33. You're seeing here, though, McKenzie v Camu play out. This is the battle of 5th. As it happens here, there's a little bit of a bump on the back end of the 44. Owen Camu, very elbows out approach to things. Now, we saw just a little sprinkling of this in Monza in the last round of Season 3. We see it continue here into Brands Hatch. Gets the lunge up the inside through Surtees, holds his ground very close to his opponent. Now moving up ahead of Lewis McKenzie. We'll go and stay on board with the McLaren from their side of things, scrolling through the field to try and catch on board here with Owen Camu, as we see continuing through Hawthorne's now the battle of 5th place. And now from the defending angle as he now makes the move up back into the top 5. 5.5 minutes left to go here in Brands Hatch, and I sense that we're far from the end of it in terms of action. Up through Sheen Curve, kicking up a tremendous amount of spray in the face there of Lewis McKenzie. Now, we saw it from the McLaren's point of view. Oh, hang on, a tick here we just see with Craig Stewart sliding into the pit lane. I think that could very well be the end of his race today. But let's go and catch on board just quickly here with the Ferrari, because I want to see the unique angle that he's having to play against here. Lewis McKenzie, this is the helmet cam, so this is roughly what he's seeing out on track. And I suppose more relevantly, what you can't see is a firm outline of that number 1, being Owen Camu's McLaren. All you can really see is the faint image of a McLaren made out in the mist. That's plenty confusing enough here from the point of view of the number 44. And with the close proximity of Milan Piconi, this could very well bleed into being a fight further down the line for 6th place. As it stands, though, still 5th for Mackenzie v Camus. But for how much longer? We'll find out a little later on, bringing back up the larger display here so we can snap between drivers a lot quicker. With the amount of action that has happened on various different lengths of the track so far. Presently, this is one of the closest among them. Possible fight to consider here in the trailing end of round 1. Prince v Barrett. Oh, in the foreground there, that is Josh Hudson in the number 11. That brings the yellow flags out in Sector 1. An incident for him down in, I think that was, yes, Graham Hill Bend, turn 3. Big trouble then for Hudson. As it stands there, right behind him is Sean McNally. So he drops to 10th place. Could very well drop out of the top 10 entirely with the Mercedes now on his trails. So that brings into perspective a possible new fight here. The number 4 now given a chance to finish in the top 10 amidst the damages incurred to his Mercedes on the exit now of Hawthorns in towards the run of Westfields. We see even with damaged front and by looks of it, damaged rear aero as well. His wing doing the best impression of a brisker F1 as it stands. Sean McNally really playing up against uncertain odds here in the opening round. Sliding his way through Sterling's. We'll see how they get on in the next 3 minutes. Taking a look on towards the podium. It is going to be a very exuberant start to the season here for Jay Johnson. Has played his cards right and puts Bentley on for a podium. Possibly the first podium for Bentley as a manufacturer in this championship. Certainly their first this season. But a 108, this could make a very unique choice. Of course, we've seen Bentley to be a growing choice in terms of popularity. And we explained some of the reasoning behind that and why our theory is that the Bentley has seen such a meteoric rise back into relevance on the grid. It's because, and mirroring the same points we made there, what we are effectively seeing under the much more plush exterior than its contemporaries is effectively the same bones and underpinnings that we find in another very competitive and popular car, the Ford Mustang. Now, look at it on paper. 8-cylinder engine. It's a V8, albeit not a 5.4 naturally aspirated. It's a 4-litre twin turbo unit that was co-engineered by the folks at M Sport UK. Same folks that work actually on Ford's World Rally cars. Helped to develop the engine for the Bentley Continental GT3. What we see at the moment as well, front engine, rear drive, much more confident on the curbs. It's a car that's a little bit softer around the edges. It's not trying to be a bit more of a sharp front engine car like the BMW M4. It's not trying to be a little too plush like the Aston Martin. It's in that nice Goldilocks zone. Now, here's the kicker. Bentley very rarely, if ever, finds itself on the short end of the stick under BOP. In the era of balance of performance, whether it's pitskill.io or LFM, as we've seen evidence today, Bentley doesn't often find themselves up against it like Ford does. They don't have engine restrictions, and they sure as hell don't have heavy ballasts on board. We see a bit of trouble there for Morrissey. Had a bit of a snap on the exit of turn 4 on the run through Surtees. Back on board with Johnson. And it's this loophole in the regulations that drivers have been able to come through and exploit so greatly with the Continental, because it has a lot of the same strengths and qualities of the current generation Mustang, but at a fraction of the detriment under BOP scrutineering. It's a very cheeky strategy. Oh, we do see a bit of trouble there for Johnson, doing his best impression of a rallycross car, which actually did compete here in Brands Hatch. They did have some rallycross in some of the more bizarre ages to be a rallycross driver. The trailing end of Group B did compete here at Brands Hatch when they were outmoded from use in the World Rally Championship in 1986. Well, I suppose the history lesson is due course another day as we're into the final lap. Still on board with Johnson, but getting a look in with the leading car. Nick Alexander then, on his debut to the series, looks to be heading things up into a race win at Brands Hatch. It has been an impeccable performance by the number 13 so far. Had a great qualifying session led by 3/10 on the exit of quali today, and has elevated that, albeit amidst some of the more bizarre race starts I've seen here at Brands Hatch. And for these drivers, one that is definitely giving great advantage over to the leading car by just nature of being out of its way, has given him a great opportunity to come through and see things through here to a possible race win. We'll see if that's the case, though. Of course, a few more corners and anything can and often does happen on a track like Brands Hatch in conditions like these. Up through the Sheen curve we go then with the number 13. We'll have to catch on board with him in just a moment's time as we quickly investigate what could have been a potential fight here has now dissipated between Hudson and Prince. So without further ado, making our way in towards Clearways and the exit of Sterling's, on board with Nick Alexander, making his way down through the Clark curve to see the checkered flag here on the opening round, Season 4, Round 1 of the MSC ACC GT3 Series. Down to the line then for the opening round of the championship. It's Nick Alexander to win in Brands Hatch. A brilliant, brilliant drive indeed by the number 13. Impeccable performance, ruthless consistency, outright efficiency there for the number 13. Great, great stuff. Laney X finishes second, a triumphant result for the 112. Heading to the line then, Jay Johnson on a move away from Ferrari to Bentley, sees the podium in the first round of the championship. We see here brand new driver to the series being pursued to the line by Owen Camu is Howard Dunn with Aston Martin 4th place in the number 23. We said to keep an eye on the V8 Vantage and we were not wrong in that assertion. Owen Camu, amidst incidents in the trailing end of this race, finishes in the top 5 ahead of Lewis McKenzie. Milan Picorni in 7th place, so it appears there, and heading to the line Jonathan Barrett for 8th. A very controversial start then to the season, make no mistake of it, and I'm sure the drivers will be coming away from this one with plenty to say, and heading into that second round of the championship, things are sure to pick up in an even fierier start than the one we've seen today, so do hold on to your seats for that one come next week. On Friday the 20th, Jonathan Barrett across the line, 8th place. We see here for Jasper Prins, crosses the line sideways in the 333 for 9th. Josh Hudson rolling to the line here as we see Daniel O'Brien runs into the pit lane, finishes 14th. We see here for Hudson, crosses the line in the top 10. Sean McNally on his first chapter in with Mercedes was definitely a troubled start for the number 4 AMG, but nonetheless sees the top 15 in 11th. And behind him, new driver to the field, Steve O'Markey, 12th place. An all-Mercedes 6th row then, looking through the full results then. Alexander wins in Brands Hatch, Laney X 2nd, Johnson 3rd, Dunn 4th, Camu in 5th, McKenzie in 6th, Picorni 7th, Barrett 8th, Prince 9th, and Hudson in 10th, McNally in 11th, Markey in 12th, Hoke in 13th, O'Brien in 14th, Morrissey 15th, Dexter 16th, Kavalik in 17th, Scaparo 18th, and we see there provisional 19th, 20th, and 21st, that being Timo Fire, Donnie Linton, and Craig Stewart, and we see the DNFs there, Jensen Bolton, Wesley Ambrose, FFR Brundle, and Alessandro Litti. Well, what a bizarre round and revelling. In an opening win, we see the podium collect themselves here on the run down towards Clearways. We see the Mustang, the Ferrari, and the Bentley collect on the run towards turn 9. Joining from behind them there, we also see making the run of the top 4, the Aston Martin of Howard Dunn. They make their way in towards the pits then by the looks of things. And what a start to the season for these 4. Keep a very close eye because this could make for a very fiery second round. Looking at where we'll be though on the 20th, we head across the channel then into the Benelux region over to the Circuit Zolder in Heusden-Zolder, Belgium for round 2 of season 4. That's all from us here on TRTN. A wonderful result for these drivers. Very well done then to Nick Alexander. A win on debut in the number 13. A very well done to the rest of that top 5 as well for Rudolf Slanieks, Jay Johnson, Howard Dunn, and Owen Camu. And a very well done to the rest of the drivers to have finished today's race in what has been a very, very bizarre start to the season. Nonetheless, we'll see how it all picks up next Friday at the same time. That's all from us here on TRTN. We have 3 events coming up tomorrow from HCCL, Competizione Performance League and Race Club UK at the start of their Shooting Stars Cup. This is going to be a very, very exciting day tomorrow. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Good night.